Jim, another question sent via the Facebook group, the official Cult of Cornette, from Don Stanley Hallbrooks III.
Oh, come on now.
You guys talked about Tommy Rich in a recent episode. Would or could he have been a big national star if he had not had his issues? I saw him at a show in my hometown in the 90s. He was drunk and throwing out inappropriate comments in his promo. It was wild. So what do you think? Because again, with Tommy Rich, a lot of it's about timing and place, and then you get to him and his personal issues or traffic issues or all sorts of issues. Could he have been a bigger star nationally? Did he get as far as he could go nationally? What are your thoughts on this issue overall?
Well, remember, he was a big star nationally. For the nationally that existed at the time in the early days of TBS, the Superstation, he was the most popular babyface in wrestling in the country overall. Now, that, you know, some of that is because, yes, you know, the territories were local and regional television, so they had a foot up in that more people were able to see the Georgia program. But I would say once Bruno retired, for that, 1979, 80, 81-ish, that era when Tommy Rich was in Georgia, he was the most popular babyface in the country. And that's why Barnett was able to get him the belt for that 5 days or whatever, just to give the people something to reward their faith in this fucking kid. He had to go all the way.
But if I could stop you right there, specific to him becoming a big national star, and agree with you, you know, he was on TBS when it went national. Terry Funk, I think, was one of the things he cited when he knew it was time to sell the Amarillo territory.
Yeah.
When a fan came up to him and said, "When are you guys going to book Tommy Rich?" And he's like, "What? How do you know about Tommy?"
Yeah.
And it's because it was on cable already. But you said kid. Do you think the fact that after a while he didn't necessarily look like a kid anymore?
Well, but that's what I was going to say. So the question, Tommy Rich, the young, I want to say because remember, I saw like his fourth fucking match live. His father was friends with the Jarretts, and he was from Hendersonville, Tennessee, and he was a big kid. And he had a personality, but he was, again, talk about Jimmy Kent earlier in the show, talk about him being country. Tommy Rich was as country as it got. And that accent was legitimate and not put on. And, you know, so the point is, he would have worked as a babyface in any of the territories. He started in 1975. Any of the territories in the 70s and the early 80s. He would have worked as a babyface because he was an underdog, even though he was a good-sized kid. He knew how to bleed and sell. And he had fire in his comebacks. And he worked most specifically in Tennessee, Georgia, that part of the country, because he sounds just like us. And that was a necessity in a territory babyface. But again, because the people in Texas and the people in, the Midwest and wherever, they liked him on Georgia TV because he was a country boy. And the Waylon and Willie thing was hot, whatever. So that didn't take away from him at that time period either. You know, the Outlaws were all the rage in terms of country music. He would have worked in Florida tremendously had he ever even had time to go there. But the problem was, once that Vince established that you had to look like Mr. Universe to be a wrestler, and the Road Warriors and Hulk Hogan and Luger and all of that became in vogue in all the companies, that doomed Tommy. Because he didn't have a body and wasn't going to get a body. You couldn't make him. If he'd have shot every kind of monkey hormone, he was like Bobby Eaton. He wasn't going to have a fucking body, plus he didn't take care of himself, so he had a worse body. And then that's why he was, unfortunately, by the late 80s, he had that last run with WCW, which they didn't really use him.
And that was the best shape he had been in years when he showed up in 89 again.
Yeah, and there you go. That's the best shape he'd been in years, and he was still in that shape compared to what everybody else looked like. There's Brian Pillman, right? So he couldn't be a babyface, so he's a heel. He was a great heel, but he was a great old Tennessee style heel. That shit works in the main event, but you can't really just do that shit that you need to do in the second or third match and pull out gimmicks and bleed and blah blah blah. So that's why, his career, he was a shooting star, a comet across the sky, but it flamed out early because the time passed and the places passed to go and to fit what he did.